Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the LA Lakers offseason. And this has been nothing short of incredible work by the front office there for the Lakers. And I have, made it no secret that they weren't a great front office in the past before LeBron got there. It was pretty clear that the only reason they got LeBron was because he wanted to be in LA. It didn't have anything to do with the assets, didn't have anything to do with what they did in the prior 4 years. It was just because LeBron wanted to be there. But I have to give them all the credit in the world for what has become basically the best case scenario offseason for this team, and has created the situation in which they're probably the favorite to go and repeat their NBA title that they won this past season as well. And a lot of that has to do with the moves that they have made this offseason, and that is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every day, and we're on the push towards 100,000 subscribers. We're about 5,000 away. So if you're looking for a place for consistent NBA content, this is a great place to be. You can also leave a like rating on the video. Helps me out a ton, gets the video out to more people on YouTube, and you can check me out at the various socials at the bottom of the screen. But with that said, let's talk about what the Lakers have done this offseason. As I said, the headline here is that this is basically as close to a perfect scenario as you can get for the Lakers in terms of what they had coming into this offseason and then what they're going to end up with. Because I didn't really foresee a scenario in which this team came back next year better than they were the year before. And what they were the year before was obviously champions and a great team, but one of the most top-heavy teams in the entire league. And they had multiple players that were key parts of their rotation that had player options that they had to deal with, and it just seemed like they were going to be dealing with a lot of moving parts and ultimately lose out on a couple of key players in free agency without the assets or cap space to make up for those departures. However, despite the fact that they had a number of player options, like of course Anthony Davis, but as well as other players like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Rajon Rondo, Avery Bradley, guys like that, some of which left, they somehow managed to make this a much better and a much deeper roster than it was even at the beginning of this past season in which they won the title. So let's talk about some of these moves that they made and how they were able to do it. So the first one that they did, of course, was bringing in Dennis Schroder via a trade. Now, they did lose Danny Green in that, and say what you want about Danny Green. I know that Lakers fans are not ecstatic about, some of the shot making that Danny Green didn't provide at times, but they trade away Danny Green to make the salaries work and a late first-round pick in this draft to Oklahoma City in exchange for Dennis Schroder, which is really, really good value, especially considering the circumstances of this Lakers team. Because as great as LeBron is, at some point you're going to have to expect his playmaking stuff to drop off a little bit at some point. The athleticism, whatever it may be, and Dennis Schroder can help make up for any kind of slippage that may occur this season. I'm kind of in, when I see it, I'll call it mode for LeBron, but I'm not anticipating any kind of downfall from him anytime soon. But at some point it's going to happen, and if it does happen this year, it's nice to have that extra boost of playmaking and someone that can take the burden off of LeBron as well in the offensive end of the court, whether that's during a game or during the entire season. Rondo obviously was a playmaker for this team, but not at the level that Schroder is in terms of an explosive guy that can score and facilitate. They didn't really have that on the perimeter last year, and now they have it in Dennis Schroder, and that is an awesome, awesome move for LA given the value that they sent back to Oklahoma City. They also pulled off what is probably the surprise of the entire offseason, and that is signing Montrezl Harrell to a 2-year, $19 million deal via the mid-level exception. Now, this is probably just going to end up being like a 1-year, $9.5 million deal as he looks to enter 2021 free agency, but it's nothing short of an incredible pickup for this team. And you can say what you want about, Harrell's role in that 3-1 collapse with the Clippers and the fact that he wasn't a great two-way player in the postseason. But the fact that they can bring in someone that just won the Sixth Man of the Year award, is one of the better six men in the entire league, can provide an offensive scoring punch off the bench, and I'm sure will be a great pick and roll partner, whether that be with LeBron or more likely in the second unit with someone like Dennis Schroder, is an incredible pickup. Not to mention the fact that it weakens a Western Conference rival, of course, in the LA Clippers. Now, whether they were planning on bringing Harrell back or not, I'm not sure, but the bottom line is they took him away from the Clippers, and now he's on their roster and should certainly be a huge help. He's going to go into 2021 free agency looking for his big payday, but for right now, he's going to be on the Lakers and be a really, really nice bench option for them. That is an incredible pickup. And as we go through this, I want to kind of explain how they got each of these players, because I think some people are confused about how they have this money. For Harrell specifically, it was that full mid-level exception, the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, that they would bring in Harrell on that 2-year, $19 million deal. Then we get to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was re-signed via the bird rights that they have over him, which basically means they can go over the cap to re-sign him. Even though he did decline his player option, they bring him back on a 3-year, $40 million deal. And this was a player that was really critical to their success down the stretch in the postseason as a reliable 3-and-D player, one of the few on this roster that was a good two-way player that could shoot the ball as well as could defend, a little sprinkling of playmaking in there as well at times for KCP. A really nice, that's really nice that they were able to bring him back because he certainly had options on the open market, but ultimately returning to LA, playing with LeBron, playing with the Lakers as he has for the last handful of seasons is a good decision for him and really, really helps this team, again, fill out that rotation. If he had left, they didn't really have the ability to fully replace what he does for this team. The fact they brought him back was huge, and it was definitely a possibility that he could have left this offseason. Then we get to a handful of minimum contract guys here. That's why they would have bring these guys in. They had to move the JaVale McGee contract to bring in the first player here, being Marc Gasol. The reason they had to do that is because they were very, very close to the hard cap, not the salary cap, not the luxury tax, but the hard cap, the very top level of money that you can spend on your roster. They were very close to that. That's why they moved the McGee salary to bring in Marc Gasol at a slightly above minimum deal. And then they brought in Markieff Morris and Wesley Matthews as well. Markieff obviously was on the roster prior to as a buyout player that joined the team last season. So all of those different things come together in addition to the eventual re-signing of Anthony Davis to create a bit of a dream offseason here. And again, they brought in Harrell with a mid-level. They traded for Schroder. KCP they brought back via bird rights. And the last three, Gasol, Morris, and Wes Matthews, were all basically minimum deals. And they moved JaVale McGee in order to stay under that hard cap by bringing in Marc Gasol. Gasol, I wouldn't be surprised if he is the starting 5 for this team next year, considering that they have gone away from playing Anthony Davis as the full-time starting 5 until they get to the postseason. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him and AD starting together in the front court. Now, they could, of course, start Harrell at the 5, but he's much better as a bench option for me. Gasol is kind of the steadying presence at the 5 there, so I'd expect him to start potentially at that spot for this team. Then, of course, Morris and Matthews are going to provide some nice bench play. They can both make shots off the ball. Wes Matthews, a bit of a good two-way player there that they kind of get a Lakers discount on for both of those guys. And at the end of the day, that is something that needs to be mentioned here, right? When you're talking about bringing in Gasol, Matthews, Morris, whoever they brought back, even KCP, the lure of being a Laker, playing with LeBron, the opportunity to win a championship, yeah, that's certainly an advantage here for them. But that's also just what you get when you win the title and you look to be a contender again. And I don't think that it's an unfair advantage in any way. It's an advantage that a lot of teams, have access to, and the Lakers maybe have the biggest advantage there. But that's just part of being the Lakers. So again, an incredible offseason for them. And the other part of this is they kept Kyle Kuzma. I had assumed, like, if you had showed me this list, right? If you had said, oh, they traded for Schroder, they did this, they did this, they did this, I would have assumed that Kyle Kuzma was off the roster, either via the Schroder trade or to create salary for some of these other guys because they valued them more than they valued Kuzma. But Kyle Kuzma is still on this roster, creating a rotation of, in my opinion, right now, which obviously these things can change, starters that include Schroder, KCP, LeBron, AD, and Marc Gasol, and then off the bench, Matthews, Caruso, Kuzma, Morris, and Harrell. Now, you can swap that out. You can have LeBron run the 1. You can bring in Kuzma as a starter, Caruso as a starter, Matthews, whoever, and then have that Schroder-Harrell combination off the bench. But any way you slice it, this is going to be a really, really good team next year, and I can't say enough how impressed I am of how good that front office has been this offseason. And I'm gonna be honest, like, up to this point, I didn't have a ton of confidence in the ability of that front office to work within the very confined spaces that is the constant maneuvering when you have a team that is at the highest level of salary cap that the Lakers are at when they bring back AD and LeBron, and then you have to work with all the hard cap, all those little minor things. I was very, very impressed by what they were able to do. And, certainly maybe they got some discounts on certain players and they have a bit of an advantage because they're the Lakers, but that Schroder trade was incredible. The fact that they kept Kuzma, the fact they even went after Montrez in the first place and ultimately were able to get him to sign in LA, all those things were incredible moves. Moving forward, we'll kind of have to see where all the salaries land here. I wouldn't anticipate in this moment that they're going to have very much cap space next offseason, and they've got a lot of expirings, including Kyle Kuzma, who will need a new contract for next season. They're going to have LeBron, AD, and KCP all on the roster at least next year. Everybody else, it seems like, either has a player option, a team option, or is just straight up an expiring contract. So we'll kind of see what next offseason looks like for them. But between LeBron and KCP and AD, they're probably going to be right at $100 million. So they might have a little bit of space, but nothing certainly resembling a max contract slot next offseason, especially because we don't really know where the salary cap is. But regardless, when you're looking at just for this season, as long as LeBron is healthy, as long as LeBron continues to play the way that he has and Anthony Davis continues to grow and develop as well, this is going to be a dangerous, dangerous team, a team coming off of a championship, a team with a ton of confidence, a team that knows who they are. And again, as long as health is not a factor, they are, in my opinion, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the entire league as we kind of wrap up the offseason a little bit, because we're supposed to be starting training camp in about a week or so, believe it or not. So yeah, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.